So this evening, as we've got people demonstrating across London for Palestine. Of course, one wants to support Palestinian civilians, but one mustn't confuse that with any support for Hamas terrorists. Farage today on GB News reminded me of something which I hadn't really factored in. I just hadn't thought of this was the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. He's quite right. He blames weak American leadership for the attack. He then goes on to articulate that and talk about the money given to Palestinians and to Iran. I think he's wrong there. I think he's right, probably, in the weak American leadership, which also led to the collapse of the Afghan campaign and possibly to the war in Ukraine. Weak American leadership. Opportunity seized by vicious organizations. And Farage talked about the paragliders coming in on into the Peace Festival, killing, abusing people, then parading their bodies, the sexual murder and the seizure of children as hostages. This is something which takes Hamas beyond the realm of being, as the BBC talked, and as Farage criticised the BBC for it, Palestinian militants. No, these are terrorists, and they're quite different from the Palestinian civilian population, which is huge in such a small area. And I think it's wrong for people to be celebrating the attack. This is a democratic community, a democratic country, attacked by an organization determined, like Iran, to eradicate Israel and to eradicate Jews. That is anti-Semitism. That is where the genocide lies. And the crazy fanning of the flames by people who just want to sloganize rather than to think critically through the issues. And thinking critically through the issues means that, you're looking at ideas, you're perusing them, and then you're dismissing them, or you're accepting them for a while and then you're dismissing them. So it allows for a change of mind. So this idea that that YouTube and the internet so beloved that you've got to be consistent is, again, nonsensical. You've got to go through this process of trying to work out what we do. And it's a shame that, countries faced with this sort of catastrophe do not have the time to critically evaluate things. That's what we have to do in advance. That's why it's so important to train ourselves to do it now when we're looking at what's happening around us, to critically evaluate the issue so that we are ready, so that our minds are ready to be trained. So we are training ourselves to be critical rather than to be sheep. Bah! We're not sheep. And we shouldn't be waving slogans like Suella Braverman. We should be thinking critically. And to start talking in this sort of nonsensical half-life about Israel being an apartheid state, this is offensive to black people in South Africa. It's offensive to the South African experience to talk about Israel as an apartheid state. It's not. But it's a hyperbolic code slogan which is bandied around by people. You hear it among the hard left, and you hear it in other countries, and it's perfectly possible to support Israel, to support Palestine without perverting reality. Israel tries to be a liberal democracy, and the two-state solution, which has been proposed, I think, twice to Palestine, was rejected by Palestine, and particularly by Hamas and Gaza. And that is the problem. That is the problem. I think the two-state solution brings with it many problems, particularly for the security of Israel. But the fact that Israel offered it, and the fact that it was rejected, it's rejected because Hamas is not prepared to recognize and accept the state of Israel itself. It wants to eradicate the state of Israel, as does Iran. While that factor exists, Israel has existed for long enough to be taken seriously. It's done good to the region, as well as there are serious problems with the present Israeli government. There have been serious problems with other Israeli governments. So much of there are problems with the establishment of the State of Israel through terrorist organizations like the Irgun. But Israel is a recognized state, a sovereign nation, a democratic country. And if Palestine wants to be taken seriously, and if Gaza, ruled by Hamas, wants to be taken seriously, how on earth can they be parading the naked bodies of their victims through the streets and thinking, this is the stuff of a sovereign country, this is the stuff of a civilized nation? This is barbarism. And I think the majority of Palestinians would recognize that as barbarism, but dare they stand up against it in the same way as dare people in Russia stand up against the tyranny of President Putin? No. There is a distinction to be made, and a distinction to be made between the terrorist organization that has committed this crime and the Palestinian people who now suffer, and the response of Israel, I'm afraid, and of the current Israeli government, is far from measured. And where does this huge Palestinian population go? We're now talking about 120,000 people who apparently are displaced. I'm sure there'll be much. That's a modest assessment at the moment. Where do these people go? Yoav Gallant talks today about putting Gaza under a complete siege, of cutting off its water, cutting off its food, blockading these people. Why? Most of them have done nothing wrong. To make a point, to establish a deterrent, but without a clear plan. The only plan on the table is the two-state solution, and that has been rejected by Hamas. We need to think more coherently. We need to think more critically. We need to look at all the possible angles, and we need to get rid of the sloganizing. Absolutely.